Hello and welcome to Mindful Conversations. This podcast is all about inspiring and educating folks in conversations with folks that I have on that share their expertise in their career field and or their life experiences. And today I'm really excited to have a guest come on who's going to share with us about parasites. And I know a lot of you may not know much about parasites, or maybe you've been wondering about it. And there's a lot to be learned. And I think we can all learn a lot from this gentleman. His name is Daniel, and I met him recently through a mutual friend. And I'm excited to have him on because I think it's not only an interesting topic, but an important one. So I hope you will stay tuned. He's coming on right now. So let's get him in on our... Hey, Daniel.
Hi, Melanie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad that you're here today because I think this is an important topic. I know every time we get talking on the phone, we just talk and talk and talk because we have a lot in common.
Yes, we do.
Both being in the health field, it's exciting to meet people that are like-minded. And so first of all, I wanted you to kind of share with people maybe your background and how did you even get interested in health? And I tell people it's a lot of times people that are involved in this kind of work, it's something that we go through in our life experiences that make us want to be into what we're doing, just like myself. So tell us about yourself and your background.
Okay. I'll try to keep it short. About 20 years ago, I was a home builder. And I'd been a home builder since my early 20s. I was independent. Of course, I was violating all the natural health laws. I was eating all the wrong foods, staying up all night, drinking all the liquors and beers and everything. And I was basically murdering myself. And at 45, I was a big guy. I'm still a little overweight, but I was really big back then, super unhealthy. And I contracted viral meningitis, paralyzed my left side, left arm, left leg, left eye. And I lost memory for a little over a year. And I had separated, left my first, and I met a second partner, and she was a doctor. And before I blanked out, I had the stiff neck. I couldn't turn this way. I had to turn my whole body. She said, "You have viral meningitis." I resisted going to the hospital because my partners back then, I was marketing for doctors as well as being a home builder. I marketed nutraceuticals for them. So I knew a little bit. I was kind of getting my feet wet then. But yes, I just remembered that reading all her natural health books, she had over 300 of them. I think I read every single one of them. And all of them had this common trait: minerals, 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 all of them. Vitamins, of course, but also and iodine. So I made the connection and I said, I need minerals. And she bought some low quality ones at a local store. And she said I drank them like water. She made me a vegan, not by choice, but in less than 6 months' time, I had almost completely recovered. And then it took me another 7-8 months to regain my strength in my left arm and my right leg, and my eyes centered again. And I was back to normal and maybe 80 pounds lighter, 90 pounds lighter. And I was communicating a lot with God. And I kind of like made an arrangement with him. And I said, if you give me more time, I thought I was going to die. I'll work for you. And I kind of completely changed. I'm a different person. I don't recognize that person anymore. I'm completely changed. And I gave up the search for money and success and all of that. And I really enjoy what I do now. The money's not as good, but the satisfaction is incomparable. Yeah. And that's basically it. 20 years ago.
Wow. I kind of had a similar experience with life challenges that got me into the field as well. And so it is very rewarding when you can help people. So it's awesome that you're involved in it because, I think the things we go through in life prepare us for the next thing and makes us who we are. So that's pretty cool. So I know that you have an interesting field that you're in, and I know that you're an expert on reading nails and tongues. So can you explain to us what that means? Because it's kind of hard to put into words for someone that's not familiar.
Well, the body will yell at you, or at least they yell at me, and I can't help it now. It's almost like a curse. Every time I go see somebody's nails, they set them on a table or something, and I'll stare at them. Well, this guy's got this. He's going to go through this. And it's just like I can't help it. But my mentor, Dr. Susar Chi, he's out of Anaheim. He's from China originally. Wonderful, very humble man. He's the one that certified me, and we communicate almost weekly. But he's a wonderful gentleman, and he's the one that taught me this skill. It's fingernail and tongue analysis. It's wonderful. I don't really need blood work. I don't need X-rays or anything, but they do help, right? And so the body will show on your fingernails, lack of minerals, leukemia, osteoarthritis, aging, all types of disorders. The tongue as well, the heart, kidneys, lung in the back, liver on the sides, hypoglycemia on the sides, under the tongue shows you if you have high metals in the body, and on and on and on. If you pull your lip, the frenulum right there. I can tell if you have cysts. I'll check your forehead for heavy metals, your eyes for cholesterol, your neck for diabetes, your inner ear, and on for cancer, stomach cancer, and so on.
Wow. So usually when I have somebody come on and we're talking about health related stuff, I will make a disclaimer just because I need to, that this podcast isn't really about diagnosing or curing anybody, but it's all about information to help inform people to do their own research. So anyway, I just want
to strictly educational.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So I know this is really kind of an interesting topic for some, and others have no idea what we're going to talk about. And that's another reason I wanted to do it, because I did a little bit of research into this several months ago. I started doing some myself just to kind of see what would happen. And I would like for you to share with us your knowledge in the area. And I know you're talented in many areas, but today I would like to talk about parasites. Like, what are they? What are we talking about here?
Well, they're most of them are microscopic, even though some are visible. And we were talking earlier, I don't know, it was this morning or yesterday. You asked if I could describe them in one word, and I would use the word ubiquitous. They're everywhere, and they can survive in the hottest place, Death Valley, and the coldest places, the Arctic and Antarctic. They are all over, and they've been there for probably since our creation. But definitely. They're all over the place, and they're very easy to pick up.
So how do people get parasites? I mean, back, I guess, years ago when I thought about parasites, I would think about our dogs, or,
Yes.
we don't think about it as human beings having parasites in our body. And when you do think about it, it sounds disgusting. I mean, I've known about it for years now, but It wasn't something I was definitely an expert in or anything.
Right. Well, I can, for instance, people that own cats, almost all cats have something in common. They have a worm called protista, and they should be tested. Or if they don't want to get tested, they should start on a protocol.
Okay.
Either allopathic or natural. I prefer natural, as you do. But that's just one example. Dogs carry roundworm, tapeworm, screwworm, and all types of other parasites as well. So anyone that owns a dog should also be on a protocol, or at the very least go get them tested.
And how would an animal get tested?
An animal get tested by vets. They'll check their stool, or maybe even if they're more complementary, which means they're experts at both allopathic and natural. They can do a saliva test as well, and a urine test.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So why do you think it is that people don't know about parasite? Why isn't it taught? Like, why isn't it more common?
Well, I was discussing that with my son. I don't know if it was yesterday or today, this morning. He said he remembers briefly in one of his health or biology classes, and I remember it as well. We did have maybe a week or two, and they talked about it, and we saw the little things, and I told them, don't they look like aliens? I said, yeah, I think this is where these movie producers get all these ugly creatures, but they're life-size. But if you look at a parasite under a microscope, they definitely look like aliens, almost like nothing you've ever seen before. Horrible teeth, sharp teeth, and all this.
I've seen some pictures.
Yes, and it is gruesome to talk about. It's a little bit gross, and it's disturbing to some. But if we don't open our eyes, if we don't allow ourselves to learn these things, we're destined to suffer the tragedies in our health as we get older. Now, when we're younger, we get contaminated, and it starts with the children, of course. And when we're young, we play with dirt and we'll eat mud pies and stuff like that. Well, dirt is contaminated with all kinds of parasites, right? So if you've ever seen a baby, they'll stick their fingers in their mouth, get saliva, and stick it in the dirt and stick it right back in.
Yeah.
There's one reason for that, and that's because they probably have colic, and that's very painful. And in dirt is very high in probiotics. So they're actually yelling at their mom and their dad, "Hey, mom, dad, I need probiotics. It'll help with my colics." But they can't talk, they can't communicate. That's their way of communication. Unfortunately, the soil is contaminated with parasites.
Wow.
So
So,
one of the things that one of the simplest ways for them to spread it is by they'll touch their behind, and then they'll go play with toys with a little partner, and they'll spread it like that.
mm, so
And going back to that topic, the question, why don't we know about it? Why aren't we taught? Why isn't it continued?
yeah.
Your answer is as good as mine. I think allopathic medicine has a way of treating people, and they just are not interested in it the way we are. We know it's going to cause symptoms, maybe not in our teens, maybe not in our 20s, but as we age, we most definitely will suffer all types of symptoms.
What are some of the symptoms? I mean, I've done some research on it, but you know way more. So, what would you say if somebody was saying, "Well, how do I know if I have parasites? What would I notice, or what would be the symptoms that people would?"
Rashes, hives, itching, bloating, cysts, tumors, blindness in some cases in water, uh,
Wow.
and of course, early death. We don't know what our lifespan is going to be, but do parasites shorten our lifespan? Absolutely. It can take a
Wow.
year from your life, a month, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We just don't know. It depends on how contaminated you are and where that parasite is invading, what organ. For
Yeah, that
instance,
was.
if you have like flukes on your pancreas, that's not good. Pancreas, anything with a pancreas, it doesn't give us time to try to help them.
Wow. So, what organs do parasites attack? I mean, is it more organs or just tissue in general?
Oh, the intestines for one, tapeworms,
Yeah.
roundworms,
Mhm.
screwworms, not so much. And we'll talk about local parasites in Texas.
Okay.
There's amoebas, giardia. Those are not worms. They're like little nematodes. Flukes, and of course the worms. The worms are everywhere. There's pinworms. There's roundworms. There's screwworms, tapeworms. The roundworm is external. It'll affect your skin, and it does that familiar circle. So you're familiar with those,
Yeah.
and we know how to get rid of those. The others are almost all interior, and there's one that it's caused blindness. You get that in river water. It's not common in Texas, but in Mexico it is. So if you have any of your followers or followers that go into Mexico, you need to warn them about that because it'll get
Okay.
into your skin and it'll itch. You may even be able to see it. They look like about the size of thread, and they'll make their way up, and they itch all the way. They'll make their way up until they get to the eye, and they will blind you eventually. It doesn't
Wow.
happen that quick, though. It gives you a lot of time. There's a lot of warning.
So I've had clients that have had problems. Not it's not really just itchy skin, but they say it feels like something's crawling under their skin.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yep.
resonate with anything that you're talking about? Because
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think of scabies or something like that, but I don't know if
No,
you
it's a
have.
parasite. It's a
Yeah.
parasite. Yeah. Scabies would be more general and a bigger, broader area. Scabies don't
Okay.
naturally just attack one little spot. It'll be like
Well,
several.
this person is more their whole body, like a
Oh,
lot of their
goodness.
body.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds like, sounds like
It feels like something's
contact
crawling.
dermatitis or something. Does it itch?
Hmm. Yeah, but it was more uncomfortable and just like under the surface of the skin, like something's crawling under the skin.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't know
Wow.
if you were familiar with that.
Not the whole body. It's usually localized unless they're heavily contaminated. And they would need to start a protocol
Sure.
immediately. Yeah. And they can go
So,
either allopathic or they can do natural.
yeah. Well, we don't want side effects.
Yeah,
So
no, there's a
I
lot
know
of heavy side effects. Yes.
I know there's other ways that people get parasites other than swimming, right?
Right.
What are some things that people can do to maybe avoid getting them? I mean, we can talk into solutions if you have them, but I'd like to
Yes.
about how people can avoid them.
Well, there was one good thing that happened with COVID, and that is
Mhm.
that all of these stores were sanitizing all their shopping carts, their products, the floors, the atmosphere, everything was sanitized. So in that respect, that really helps because you have to decontaminate everything.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about Dr. Clark, how I would call her, what word can I, maybe an extremist? Because she
Hmm.
talked about boiling everything, boil your eggs, boil your milk, boil your cheese, boil everything. And it's who's going to do that? No one's going to do that. But yes, and I carry no hand sanitizers because especially if they're alcohol based, they're xenoestrogens and they'll affect your estrogen. Estrogen, of course, is a cancer starter, So I carry silver, and if they can't find it locally, they can order from me. And this
Yeah.
is, I spray it on my hands, spray it in my mouth, my ears, my nose, my eyes, anywhere. And anytime I travel, anytime I fly, I'll use that because it doesn't have any alcohol. The other thing is you can pick it up from a shopping cart, from a doorknob, from a handshake, from a hug, a kiss on the cheek, and of course
Hmm.
intimacy. Intimacy. You share that commonly. You can pick it up from the biggest one that everybody's always worried about is, you know, toilets at restaurants and gas stations and what have you. You can definitely pick them up there.
Yeah, I
So
would
the
imagine.
yes, yes.
Now, I
But
know
to
we
but
talked
to
about
try
this
to live
before.
that type of life would be very difficult.
Sure.
So the best way to do it, I would say, is just to do a protocol, do the 90-day protocol, and then do 1 month every year, just to keep the count down. It's impossible to keep these bugs out because they're invisible. We can't see them.
Right. And so, what about food? I mean, we hear about like people that get food poisoning or different things that cause digestion issues. So, I know there's foods we could avoid, right? We talked about that
Right. Well,
before.
meats, pork is easily contaminated. Shellfish, bottom feeders like catfish, shrimp, oysters. And I don't know if you saw that someone put a post on Facebook a couple of years ago, and they had a aquarium. They filled it up with Michigan water, the Michigan Lake, and they put oysters in there. The water was dirty and murky, and a couple hours later, it was clear. Where did all that filth go? Into the oysters,
Hmm.
and here we are eating them raw,
Wow. Good
heavily
point.
contaminated with viruses, parasites, you name it, it's in there.
Now, so one question I have about meat and fish,
Yes.
if people cook it so that it's really cooked good, does it matter?
It does
Does it
help,
help?
yeah. Although there are some worms that are very hardy. You almost have to nuke it to kill them. So for fish, for instance, let's say you do catch a fairly safe fish, let's say a salmon or a redfish or a sea trout. They're always, the parasites, you can actually see them. They look like white little threads, and they'll go in
Mm.
and out of the spine, all along the spine. So I would have them just cut that out, throw it away. That's where they, for some reason, like to hang out along the spine, including in us. They'll try to migrate to our spine. So I would have them, or you can inform them, cut out the spine, throw it away, and cook the rest. But never any bottom feeders.
Yeah, like lobster.
Yes,
Probably the
that's
only bottom
what are they
feeder I
called? The cockroaches of the ocean. That's what they're called.
do. So maybe so we've talked about protocols before and things that people can do if they have them. And
Yeah.
we've also talked about how people can test themselves, not just their animals, but themselves, and whether that's even needed. So what is the testing like for a person that wants to say, oh, I just want to know if I have them? What would that look like if they wanted to do that?
They can go to just their GP, their general practitioner doctor, and ask for a stool test, and they
Okay.
usually they'll find them there. And in my case, my clients, they just go on the protocol because I
Yeah,
know for a fact they're contaminated.
sure.
If they had any lifestyle like mine or maybe even yours, we're contaminated. So yeah, we should do them. But it's always, I think it's a good idea to get tested though, just to prove, because there's a lot of people that don't believe it. And I can give you an
Right.
example. One of my clients from Mexico, he was an MD and very sure of himself, but his wife ordered so many things from a lot of products. And she said, my husband's been so mean to me. He's changed over the years because parasites do affect your character and your moods. Well, he goes home and she secretly put him on a product called Paraactive. And this is what we use to clear the system of bugs. They go home. She comes back 60 days later, says, my husband's a new man. He was terrified because he had a long tapeworm come out of him. And
Ooh.
he yelled at her, said, honey, come and look. And he says, coming out, it won't fall out. But it was about a 12-inch worm. He said that once he got clear of that, he changed. It was more
Wow.
mellow, nicer, not moody, because they do affect you. And we can go, I guess we can go into, there's a little fish that likes to lay like a bottom feeder, tiny little
Mm-hmm.
fish. When it gets infected by a certain parasite, that parasite will force that little fish to go up to the top and seek light, but it hates it, but it's forced to. So it does it unconsciously. It will just float up. The birds come and they eat them because that parasite wants to spread.
Hmm.
So if you notice anyone that you grew up with that was super nice and now all of a sudden they're moody, that could be part of the problem. It exacerbates leaky gut, panic attacks, and that type of disorder.
Well, we've seen a lot of emotional disturbances in the last few years, that's for sure. There's
Absolutely.
lots of reasons for that one, but still,
Yes,
um,
yes.
I know, like
Leaky gut.
with my what I do is I have this biofeedback program that I do, and every single person I scan has an issue with parasites. You can't get away from it. It's just
Right.
do something about it. And I think the bloating is a big thing for people, weight gain. I mean, there's just so many different things that could factor in. It may not be that's causing it, but it could be. It's something you could maybe try and see if it makes a difference,
Yeah, you'll notice bad breath, BO, strong BO, because they defecate in us. They urinate inside us. And
Urine
that
too. Yeah.
yeah, this is causes bloating, but it also affects
Mhm.
our biochemistry and our odors. It will make you
That's
irritable without even realizing it.
That's interesting. So I know there's different protocols that people have, and
Yeah.
I want you to share with yours here in a minute. But before we share that, could you explain, or you can, whichever order you think is better, explain the egg cycle? Like when I know I should just let you share it because I might botch it, but about the mother laying the eggs and the difference and why you need to do it in a certain fashion.
Right, right. So there's four stages. So you go from the egg to the
Hmm.
larva, to the pupa, and to the adult. And I think we were talking about the other day, and we were talking about the intermediate level. Like there's a baby, there's a teen, and then there's a middle age, and then the old. But in parasites, that really doesn't exist. They go from the pupa straight to adult. So in those four stages, takes about 100-day cycle. So in talking about the protocol that we use, we go 90 days straight because that'll cover the 100 days. It's between 90 to 100 days. So we don't take a day off. We go 90 days solid to catch all of the stages.
So typically, and I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know as much about this as you clearly. But typically, the female, when they're hatching these eggs, I think I had heard that the eggs will stay unhatched as long as the mom is alive. So once you start killing the mother, then the babies hatch. Is that correct? And that's why you need to keep it
Yes,
continuous.
yes, exactly. And of course, they'll hatch easily if the mom is weak or sick or dying.
Okay.
They'll hatch easily during the full moon
Oh yeah, and
because
that's
of the
another thing I
gravitational
heard.
pull. Yeah,
So
yeah.
when somebody starts your protocol, you do it around the full moon,
That's when we start. That'll be the
and then we
first day. And then we usually will recommend 3 bottles. And then when you're done with those, you should be clear of pretty much a lot of the parasites, almost all of them. And then
So
we
that,
recommend you take one of these yearly. Every year you just do one bottle.
so it makes me wonder, you know, fairy tale, whatever. You hear people talking about people's behavior changes a lot more on a full moon.
Yes.
Is it because of parasites, or is that just one?
Yes, it's very irritating, but they don't notice it. You don't feel it. But your character, yeah, your emotional, they're showing.
That with
You're wearing them
people,
on your sleeves, unfortunately. And
right?
you'll notice there's more fights, there's more beatings, there's more stabbings, more
Mhm.
shootings, more murders. Yeah.
So you could almost say that it's like an imbalance, right? Like it's not just it's affecting the
Yes.
hormones too,
Uh,
maybe.
Not necessarily by your body chemistry. It
Okay,
does affect your body chemistry, which affects every system in the body.
that's crazy. So so somebody doesn't necessarily have to be tested to do a cleanse. If they wanted to just do one on their own, they could probably be a good idea, right?
Absolutely, yes. And
So
they will while they're going through this the cleanse, they may go through Herxheimer's, and you know
mhm.
Herxheimer's is it's going to get worse before it gets better. So they may be the symptoms might be magnified. You know, more itching, more rashes, more maybe a little nausea, maybe some diarrhea, and all of that is if you can just surpass that. It's normally just a few days, maybe 4 or 5
Okay.
days, and then they start to decline until they level off. And just stay on the protocol till you're done, and you'll feel so much better. Some of my clients report losing anywhere from 5 to 12 pounds once they get through with this process.
So does it depend on how, like somebody might have a smaller load than somebody else who's really, would
Yes, yeah,
would the
depending on
dose
their
be different?
age and when they got contaminated and what parasite. If it's a
Yeah.
fluke, if it's a worm, tapeworms can get very long. I mean, I think one of the longest one recorded was 24 feet in a human. But there's, I believe it's, let me see, Gardner. He wrote a book on parasites. He's a parasitologist, and he pulled a 31 foot or 32-foot tapeworm out of a bear. And then he had another one coming out. He couldn't pull that one out. So it was very long. And these wild animals, they don't know any difference. They walk around with them, you know. They drag
Yeah.
them all over the place. So they're
Oh,
planting seeds for
gro-
the future. You know, they all get contaminated. Yes.
so probably shouldn't eat bear meat, huh?
No, no. That's like eating catfish or oysters, raw oysters. Raw oysters are worse. And
Wow.
every year you'll
Yeah.
hear more and more people hospitalized from, you know, viruses or parasites from oysters. You know, because the waters are getting worse and worse every year.
Wow. So could you give us a little bit more info on your protocol? I know you shared it a little bit, and where people can find you. I know I have your website, well, your business name up there. I don't have the actual website, but I can put it in the link underneath.
Mhm.
Um, and I think you like people to call you direct. You just let them know what's going on with your website right now and how they could reach you and where they can see your products.
Yeah, my website is deactivated right now because we're reformulating it. But they can
Okay.
always call me, and I'll be
Okay.
happy to answer any questions they have. The number is 760-845-1532. And like I said, we can go over everything, even diet. I would like to recommend a diet for them when they start these protocols and change it up a little bit and let them know how contaminated our food supply is.
Mm-hmm.
Salmonella on eggs. I don't think anyone, well, I shouldn't say anyone. Some of my clients already were doing it. They rinse their eggs because they're covered in salmonella. So if you don't rinse
Mm-hmm.
them, you could contaminate yourself if you undercook an egg because they're always in salmonella. You know, it's just common. But you should always rinse them in 50-50, 50% vinegar, white vinegar, and 50% water. Rinse them in there for 5 to 10 minutes, dry them off, and put them away. It
Really? I didn't know
reduces your chances of contaminating yourself with salmonella. No, what not too many know, but some of the farmers do. And I have a lot of clients that own farmland, and then their grandma and grandpa taught them that.
that. Right?
But yes, and then of course, people call me, is salmon safe to eat? I said, yes, but not from the Atlantic. Most of those are farm grown or pond grown, and they're all contaminated. So the Alaskan salmon, the one that's a little bit safer to eat, it's still got mercury in it, is the red sockeye. because of its detoxification process that it uses. It's different than some of the other fishes out there. But I recommend you don't eat it more than maybe once a week. And then, of course, you'll pick up the heavy metal from lead and mercury, and then we can always metal detox you.
There's always something, huh?
Yes.
We're contaminated everywhere we look. So if somebody says, I'm not really wanting to do a cleanse right now, and whatever, tell me this, I know part of the answer, but what are these parasites feeding on if they are in us? What is it that makes them worse that people can stop doing besides eating more of them?
They'll eat everything we eat, but they prefer meat, hot dogs. They prefer hot dogs, hamburgers, that kind of stuff. Basically fast food and sugars. They thrive on sugars. Fungus thrives on it. Viruses thrive on it. Bacteria. They love sugar. And on a side note, back in the 19 teens, we were consuming 15 pounds of sugar per individual annually. And now we're over 188 pounds a year.
Wow.
Of sugar, because it's in everything now. It's in everything. Candy is like polluted with sugar, and they add soy to everything now as well. Soy is not good. It's very estrogenic.
So you have diet recommendations when people are going through the cleanse and maybe what they should or shouldn't be eating, period, right?
Exactly. Yes, I do. And I'll remove some of their favorite foods, but just for dinner. They can have whatever it is they must have for breakfast or for lunch. But at dinner, foods that cause inflammation, I remove them off. So we need them to rest. We need them to start to relax and get sleepy and fall off to sleep before 10:30. Because if you go past 10:30 and you're not in deep REM sleep, you lose your human growth hormone. Your own personalized human growth. You don't have to buy a supplement. It's your own personalized human growth hormone. And what does that do? That repairs and regenerates your entire body. So when you're asleep some of my clients fall asleep at 8 at night. At 8, they're already in deep REM. They wake up feeling great, rested, and it's a big difference.
Wow. There's lots to learn.
Yes. And I tell my clients, I said, well, I kind of went to sleep at 10:30, almost 11. Because I was checking my phone. I said, the phone shouldn't be in bed with you. Artificial light will trigger your pineal gland. I say, hey, I see I was about to release your hormone, but I see you're up. I'll give it to you tomorrow. But then tomorrow you do the same thing. So you'll never get it because you go day after day after day without following the natural health laws. And, it's like that old commercial, you can pay me now, you can pay me later. It's an old commercial from the 70s. It was I don't remember, mechanic or something. And that's what happens. You're not going to befall illness that day or that month or that year, but later on in life, like you and I, past our 40s, we're starting to feel it. So if we don't take action now, we'll go down the road to a nursing home or to whatever, adult care. But why do we need someone to take care of us? We're knowledgeable and we can take action. And we can definitely affect our health in a positive manner.
That's right.
The key is education. It's just learning. And going back to that question, why don't they teach this? I think the educational system will open our eyes to the parasites, right? They're in us, and we're young when we learn this. I mean, we're middle school, I think, or maybe 4th, 5th, 6th grade, somewhere around there. But it does stay with me because I remember those lessons. So does my son. He just doesn't remember what it was. Well, it's incumbent on us to go out and do research. This is what you did. You took care of yourself. Now you're taking care of all your family and all your new acquaintances, all your new clientele. It's our duty to go out there and share this information with them.
Absolutely. And that's really one of the reasons I even started this podcast is because we can glean from each other. I don't think any one of us are here by accident at this time in history. And I think we all have something that we can contribute to this thing we call life. And those of us who are plugged into alternative ways to help, people are looking right now. And there's a lot of people hurting with health issues. And this is one topic I think that's really helpful. So I'm really glad that you came on and shared that with us today. And so again,
Thank
I
you. My
want you to give
pleasure.
your website or your phone number. If your website's not up right now, and I can always add the website later when you do have it up and going, how people can reach you. And I know some people are probably just listening by audio, so we want to make sure we give them the phone number again.
760-845-1532.
And they can also do a consult with you, right? I mean, if they want to have
Absolutely.
their nails looked at.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we can do it through text or Zoom or Messenger, however they want to do it. Mhm.
Awesome.
And I wanted
So
to mention, for those
yeah.
that are interested in continuing to educate themselves on this, there's a book by Dr. Hulda Clark. And I found her, I call her an expert, but she was more an extremist. You don't have to do everything she does. She created a appliance called a zapper, and you put these electrodes on you and you zap. She'll tell you what frequencies to use, and it'll zap some of these parasites. But I've never really used those. But if you're welcome to try them, you can order them. And also, there's no, not doctor. She's a dietitian, Ann Louise Gittleman.
Yes.
And yep, yeah, she's also got a book out on. I believe her title is Look What Came to Dinner. Dr. Clark's book, or one of her books, is The Cure for All Diseases. I don't know how she got away with that, using the word cure in the title, but she's passed away since, so I don't think she really cares anymore.
Right. Well, Anne is her protocol is the one that I used. Actually, hers is
Yes,
quite different. It's 2 weeks on, 5 days off, 2 weeks on, so it's different than yours.
right.
But as far as frequencies, that's something I'm familiar with because of the biofeedback. It can scan and identify if somebody has them, and then using frequencies to bring balance back to that. That's just one way, but I still think a cleanse is important. And also, like
Yes.
when we go through these cleanses, and we're trying to eradicate things. My background is Lyme disease, and I know if anybody ever wants to talk about that, you can contact me because I'll talk to you all day about that. But when we're eradicating these things, we still have to think about our immune system, and so that's more where I come in, and I'm sure you too. But if anybody needs any help with any of that stuff, you can go to holisticimpressions.com, and I can help you, and I can also get you in touch with Daniel if you can't find him online somewhere. But I will put your phone number and information in the link so they can contact you.
Yes, absolutely. And you asked me earlier about where did I learn this, and it was Dr. Susarchi. He's my mentor. Dr. Dan and Sam Young. They're out of Wyoming. They're the ones that create this product and many others. Also, Dr. Saska, Dr. Tent, wonderful doctor. Dr. Blaylock, he's a neurologist. Dr. Joel Wallach, he wrote a book, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. Very interesting. So knowledgeable. All of these are amazing, amazing gentlemen. I know nothing. They know everything.
Oh. Well, you have a lot of knowledge, and I really appreciate the fact that you shared it. And I know that you also do stuff with iodine and some other things. And I know we're probably going to do another podcast on that because we could talk for hours.
Yes, we could.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I don't find a lot of people like us. So when I do find one, I definitely enjoy our time together.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope everybody will check out this again. They can listen to the recording again and again and share it, and that really would be appreciated if people would like, share, and subscribe and help us get the word out to help others. So thank you again, Daniel, for coming on.
Thank you, Melanie.